A headline is going viral right now claiming that a unanimous Supreme Court decision has quietly rewritten retirement rules in all 50 states. If you've seen that and felt your stomach drop, you're not alone, because retirement planning depends on stability, and anything that sounds like the rules just changed hits people directly in their savings, pensions, taxes, and future timeline. But here's the first thing you need to hear, clearly. Before you reorganize your retirement plan or panic, verify the decision. A real Supreme Court ruling has a case name, a docket number, a date, and an opinion you can read on the court's site and on trusted legal sources. A lot of retirement-related breaking news on social media is either 1. A lower court ruling, 2. A proposal, 3. A misread summary, or 4. A completely fabricated story designed to go viral. I'm Michiel, and welcome back to US Policy Brief. On this channel, we don't do clickbait, we do reality. In this video, I'm going to do 3 things in plain language. First, I'll show you how to quickly confirm whether a Supreme Court retirement story is real. Second, I'll explain what the Supreme Court actually can and cannot do when it comes to pensions, retirement taxes, and changing the rules after the fact. Third, I'll give you practical steps you can take right now to protect yourself, regardless of what courts or state legislatures do next. Let's start with verification, because this is the step most people skip. If a Supreme Court decision truly changed retirement policy nationwide, you would be able to find the case on supremecourt.gov under Opinions. You would also see major coverage that includes the case name, for example, Smith v. State, the decision date, and the legal issue, contracts clause, due process, takings, ERISA, or something similar. If the content you're seeing never names the case, never links the opinion, and only says all 9 justices agreed, treat it as unverified until proven otherwise. If you want, paste the case name here, and I'll tell you what the court actually held and what it means in practice. Now, let's address the big claim behind these viral videos. States can't change retirement rules after people relied on them. That idea sounds simple, but in US law, it's more complicated. States absolutely do change tax rules and retirement-related policies over time. They raise and lower income taxes, they add exemptions, remove exemptions, change brackets, and adjust deductions. They can also reform pension systems, sometimes only for new hires, sometimes with changes that affect current employees, depending on state law and court rulings. What courts usually look at is not, did the state change the rules, but how it changed them and who the changes apply to. There's a huge difference between a prospective change, starting next year, the exemption changes, and a retroactive change. We're changing how we treat past income or already earned benefits. Retroactive changes are more legally vulnerable, but even then, the analysis depends on the legal theory, the facts, and the jurisdiction. This is why you should be skeptical of any message that says one Supreme Court decision created a brand new nationwide retirement shield that stops states from changing retirement taxes or pensions. A real decision may strengthen certain arguments in certain contexts, but sweeping claims often collapse under legal details. Here's what is true and useful for you as a retiree or future retiree. American retirement policy sits at the intersection of several legal areas. The big ones are state pension contract rights, the federal constitution, tax law, and for private sector plans, federal ERISA rules. Depending on which retirement system you're in, different protections apply. If you're a public employee, teacher, firefighter, police officer, state worker, your pension is usually governed by state statutes, state constitutions, collective bargaining terms, and state court precedent. In some states, pension benefits are treated as strong contractual rights once earned. In other states, governments retain more flexibility. That's why you'll see very different outcomes in pension reform lawsuits from one state to another. A federal Supreme Court decision could affect that landscape, but it typically doesn't erase state-by-state differences overnight unless the court is addressing a very specific federal constitutional issue with nationwide reach. If you're relying primarily on a 401k, IRA, or private employer retirement plan, your protections are mostly tied to federal retirement and benefits law, and to whatever rules Congress and federal agencies set for taxation and withdrawals. A Supreme Court decision can affect interpretation, but most structural changes for these accounts come from Congress and the IRS, not from a single court ruling about state policy. Now let's talk about the idea that people relied on existing rules when planning retirement, because that's a real concept, but it doesn't operate as a simple guarantee. Courts do recognize that reliance matters in many contexts, especially when the government makes promises or creates programs that people structure their lives around. But courts also recognize that governments have to govern. Budgets change, demographic realities change, and tax systems evolve. When courts evaluate whether changes go too far, they often use established constitutional frameworks rather than a general, "you relied on it, so it can't change" rule. So what types of changes are most likely to be challenged successfully? The ones that look like unfair surprise or punishment. For example, a law that retroactively takes away already earned benefits without strong justification can raise serious constitutional questions. A tax that is applied retroactively to a period when people had no notice can also face legal challenges, though states sometimes win those cases depending on the structure and justification. And a change that targets a narrow group in a way that looks discriminatory or punitive can also trigger additional scrutiny. Where does Social Security fit in? Social Security is federal, and Congress has broad authority over it. States can decide whether they tax Social Security benefits at the state level, and that's where state policy matters. But again, states can change tax policy prospectively. The more realistic question is whether they can pull a sudden switch that hits people in a way courts consider unfairly retroactive or confiscatory. That's not a never, but it's also not the clean, sweeping, states can't change retirement taxes anymore claim going viral. Now let's make this practical, because the most important thing isn't the internet narrative. It's what you should do with your own retirement planning today. First, document what you relied on. If your retirement plan depends on state tax treatment, pension exemptions, Social Security exemptions, retirement income exclusions, save the official state guidance you relied on. Screenshot it, print it, store it. Keep the pages that show the rule and the effective dates. If a dispute ever arises later, being able to show what the policy was when you made major decisions can matter. Second, keep your retirement records organized. If you have a pension, keep plan summaries, benefit statements, and any official notices about benefit formulas, COLAs, or retirement age rules. If you're in a 401k or IRA, keep year-end statements, contribution records, and any employer plan notices. If your planning assumption is ever questioned by a plan administrator, a state agency, or in a legal context, documentation is protection. Third, don't build your entire retirement plan on one political assumption. This is especially important for people relocating based on tax policy. Moving to a low-tax state can be smart, but it should not be the only pillar of your financial plan. Taxes can change, exemptions can change. The best plans are resilient. They work even if tax policy becomes less favorable. Fourth, if you're within 5 to 10 years of retirement, consider a professional policy stress test of your plan. That means running your retirement budget under multiple scenarios: current tax rules, higher state taxes, partial loss of a deduction, higher healthcare costs, and different inflation assumptions. If a plan only works in one perfect policy environment, it's fragile. Fifth, if you are a public employee or retiree and your state has been debating pension changes, track legislation and union updates, not just headlines. Pension security often turns on state-level law and state-level court decisions. A nationwide headline can distract you from the real action happening in your own state legislature. Finally, understand what a Supreme Court decision actually does in real life. Even when the court issues a major ruling, the story rarely ends that day. States adjust policies, new lawsuits test boundaries, agencies interpret and implement, and courts clarify over time. Big legal shifts usually unfold in phases, not overnight. Now, one important note: your script claims a specific event. A unanimous Supreme Court decision has already reshaped retirement nationwide. I cannot confirm that claim from what you provided because there's no case name, date, or citation. If you want, paste the case name or a link to the opinion, and I will rewrite this script again with the exact, accurate holding and what it truly changes, without speculation. Until then, the safest message to your audience is, don't panic, verify, and prepare. Retirement planning is long-term. The best defense is accurate information and a resilient plan. If this video helped you, subscribe to US Policy Brief so you don't miss updates as real court decisions and state responses develop. And comment the case name you're referring to. Once I have that, I can give you a precise breakdown of who is affected, what changes immediately, and what remains the same.